All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Trish Snowden. I'm going to be your moderator for tonight, asking these lovely people some great questions. If you don't know who I am, I'm on the Chamber Board. I'm the treasurer this year for the Board of Directors of the Chamber of Commerce. I'm also the CEO for Visit Pleasant Hill, and happy to be here tonight helping out. I want to give you a couple of rules of the road for tonight and fill you in on a couple of things. So prior to the start of this forum, the candidates all pulled numbers from a hat to see which position they would seat at to give their answers. The person who drew the number 1 will also be the first to give their opening statement, and then we will go in reverse order for closing statements. And we will rotate for the person to ask the question first. So you'll see how that goes. Each person will have 2 minutes for their opening statement, 2 minutes for their closing statement, and 2 minutes to answer each question. You'll see that little timer right there. It'll go green when they got their 2 minutes. It'll go to yellow when you got 30 seconds left. It'll go on red when I'm gonna have to cut you off. So that's how it's gonna work. So just try to watch that so you can close up and, I don't have to cut somebody in mid-sentence. I want to just do some quick thank yous. I want to thank the city for allowing us to use the city council chambers tonight. Thank you very much for the help in getting this set up. Also want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this event tonight. And I want to just do a couple introductions. Jeremy Carlson, Executive Director, Tracy Olson, Chamber staff. I also want to thank a couple of our board members who are here helping tonight. Derek Knapp on technology over there, Diane Cole, Andre Obolinski. And yeah, I think I got everybody. So they're helping kind of vet the questions that come in, make sure we're not duplicating anything. And so as the audience, you all had an opportunity to ask a question. We got several great questions. So we're going to add those at the end of the 6 questions that we had pre-prepared through our Government Action Committee that works with the chamber. And also there was a couple that were emailed in. So we've listed all those questions out and we'll go over those first. If there was, and just make note that there could have been multiples of the same question. And so sometimes, we had to kind of not combine, but just know that, there was lots of multiples. So we put those into one question. Yeah, I think that's it. I think at this time, I just want to do some quick introductions. You can already see the names here, but we have Oliver Greenwood from District 5. We have Belle Law running for District 1, Amanda Sigach for District number 5, and Marshall Lewis for District number 1. So welcome and thank you for your service at this time. We appreciate that. I just ask that everybody silence your cell phones. Let's not have any distractions for them. Try to keep the side conversations down to a minimum. I know everything's very riveting, but let's talk at the end. And so yeah, let's start with our opening statements, and we will start with Oliver, and you have 2 minutes beginning now.
I see the green light. Yay. All right. Good evening. And thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this forum. And thank you for everyone in attendance. My name is Oliver Greenwood, and I am proud to be running for Pleasant Hill City Council District 5. I have benefited from Pleasant Hill, and as a Diablo Valley College student, as a parent of students who have attended schools throughout Pleasant Hill, as a parent of individuals who have played sports throughout Pleasant Hill. I've had the privilege of serving this community for many years as an attorney, as a small business owner, as a Marine Corps veteran, and as a leader of youth sports. I've seen firsthand the importance of strong local businesses in fostering a vibrant community, and I'm committed to creating an environment where businesses can thrive, families can flourish, and our quality of life remains high. My top priorities are smart money management, ensuring our city's resources are used responsibly, building a strong business community, and revitalizing our key commercial areas, and promoting safe neighborhoods with sustainable housing choices. I believe that with my background and leadership experience, I can help Pleasant Hill continue to grow responsibly while maintaining its unique small town charm. Thank you.
Ready to reset? All right. Belle, take the floor.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to be here today, and thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for hosting. My name is Belle Law, and I'm honored to be here as a candidate for Pleasant Hill City Council District 1. I'm a second-generation Asian American and a proud resident of this amazing community for the past 12 years. I've dedicated much of my career to public service, and I'm looking forward to bringing my years of financial experience and dedication to transparency and accountability to the City Council. A key area where I bring unique value is my extensive financial experience. As a senior financial analyst at UCSF School of Medicine for the past 5 years, I have overseen multi-million-dollar budgets, ensuring that every dollar is allocated wisely and spent responsibly. My work includes not only managing complex financial operations, but also leadership and spearheading initiatives. For 4 consecutive years, I secured wellness grants that significantly improved well-being outcomes, highlighting my ability to effectively align resources with impactful results. I've served as a contracts analyst for the City and County of San Francisco, where I negotiated city contracts, performed financial analysis, and shaped policies that improved operations and saved the city millions of dollars. I'm also proud of my community leadership, including hosting and organizing Pleasant Hill's first Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Festival. This event was a testament to my ability to bring people together, create partnerships, and celebrate the diverse cultures that make our city so special. As a council member, my focus will be on protecting what makes Pleasant Hill special, our small town feel and sense of community. I'm honored to have the support of local leaders, elected officials, and financial experts who believe in my vision and in maintaining community safety and fiscal responsibility. Thank you, and I hope to earn your vote.
All right, Amanda, you are up.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank the Chamber for hosting this event and for the opportunity to speak directly to the business community. My name is Amanda Sokoch, and I'm running to represent District 5 in Pleasant Hill. A little bit about me. I'm a teacher for the Mount Diablo School District. I've lived in Gregory Gardens for more than 20 years. My husband and I have had the good fortune to raise our 2 children in the city. They're now adults. Both attended Pleasant Hill Public Schools. My platform is safety, community, and opportunity. District 5 has some of the oldest neighborhoods in Pleasant Hill and lacks sidewalks and designated bike lanes. I want to work with the city to improve pedestrian and bike safety so children and families feel comfortable walking and biking to school. As a teacher of English to immigrant families, I'm passionate about making sure every voice is heard and diversity is celebrated. I've spent a lot of time working in the community. For example, I was an officer in the parent-teacher clubs for Strandwood and Sequoia Middle School, a tutor for Project Second Chance at the library, and I served 2 3-year terms on the board of a faith-based organization. Pleasant Hill has great schools and great events, and I want to work with the business community and Visit Pleasant Hill to bring even more visitors to the city. For example, I'd love to see a Pride celebration here in Pleasant Hill. As a former business reporter covering commercial real estate, I see opportunities in Pleasant Hill for growth. We have 2 large blocks of empty retail space in Pleasant Hill that we need to fill for the fiscal health of the city. I favor smart growth rather than sprawl, including redeveloping and reusing underutilized properties close to public transportation. I look forward to hearing your questions and telling you more about my vision for the city.
Thank you, Amanda. All right, Marshall, you are up.
Hello, everyone. I'm Marshall Lewis. I'm running in District 1, which is the northern part of Pleasant Hill, north of Taylor and east of Morello around DVC. I had the wonderful fortune of growing up here in Pleasant Hill. My family moved here when I was 5 years old, back in the early 90s. I see we have a person here wearing a College Park shirt. I'm class of 2004. Yes, yes, I'm talking about you, sir. I also went on to attend DVC and then went on to UC Berkeley. And the main reason why I'm running is because now I'm in a position where I have my own son and I can try to help him got to live his life here in my old hometown, which still just gives me shivers down my spine every time I think about it. But we have a lot of challenges here. And I know that because those challenges have hit me hard. Back when I was a young adult, I graduated from college into the Great Recession, then into the housing crisis, and I was economically displaced from Pleasant Hill. I spent a while living in a tiny little apartment in Martinez, converted storage room in Concord, and eventually my wife and I were able to come back to my hometown, but we were very, very lucky. Most of my peers were not so fortunate. So I'm running so that I can try to create more opportunities for people to have affordable housing here so that they can stay in their hometown if they want to. I'm running so that we can handle the city's financial challenges. And I'm running so that we can have safe streets so that our children can get to school safely. Thank you.
Thank you, Marshall. All right, are we ready? We're going to move into the questions. We're going to, since Oliver started us off, we're going to move on to Belle for the first question. I'll go ahead and ask it. If you need me to repeat it, please let me know. I'm happy to do that, but I don't want to overdo it if you're like, I already know the question. So let's start with question number 1. What is your understanding of the recent housing element, and what do you believe to be the implications to the city?
Thank you for the question. Looking at the housing element, we are actually, the regional housing need allocation is about 1,800 right now that we need to distribute across, and very low income is about 566 units. And so what I think about that, about affordable housing, is we need to promote diversity, and looking at affordable housing and the housing element where we have to meet that goal of affirmatively furthering fair housing, which means that we need to have meaningful actions to make sure that we overcome these patterns of segregation and foster inclusive communities. So in looking at that perspective, the housing element is really emphasizing that we need to build more housing, but at the same time, I'm not saying that we need to build. What we can do is look at our existing use, right? I worked at the city planning department before, and specifically in the ADU, accessory dwelling unit. And what we did was we helped streamline the process of letting people with their existing space build accessory dwelling units or junior ADUs, right? And so with that being said, I feel like that would be an opportunity for us to utilize some of the housing element issue. Another issue that we have looking at housing element is 10% of our population actually has a disability of some kind and has a special housing need. And so we need to look at that perspective as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Amanda,
Ready for
moving on.
Yes, so I have looked over the housing element, and one thing I noticed regarding affordable housing is that the cost of housing increased 116% from 2010 to 2020, and rental prices jumped about 55%. Specifically in District 5, about 15% of households spend more than 30% of their income on housing. I don't believe this is sustainable. Our average age is increasing in Pleasant Hill, so I think young families are finding it harder and harder to move here. I actually had my launch party at my friend's house specifically because they have an ADU, and their tenants came and they talked about that. And I love that Pleasant Hill is making ADUs easier to do by eliminating some of the requirements regarding, I just went to the hearing that, used to be that if you had a shed, you couldn't add an ADU, and now they're doing away with that, which I think is great. I think also that there's the potential for the state is requiring all this housing. I think if the Naval Weapons Station redevelopment occurs, then that might ease the burden of housing on the region and on Pleasant Hill.
All right, thank you. All right, Marshall.
This is a topic I could happily talk about for an hour, and I would if it wasn't for that little timer. I was actively involved in Pleasant Hill's housing element process. I submitted a comment to HCD, which is the state agency that reviews housing elements. And one of the recommendations that I had, which had to do with a kind of hillside zoning, was adopted into the final housing element. Housing elements, for those who aren't familiar with them, they serve two basic purposes. One of them is demonstrating compliance to the state, saying, yes, we do have enough zoned capacity to account for expected population growth. The other is direction to the city when it comes to how we're actually going to achieve our housing goals. I think that the housing element that we ended up with was more focused on that first goal than it was on the second. Specifically for District 1, there were two sites near my home, one along Morello and the other along Paso Nogal, that a lot of the community had very, very strong feelings about. Those were sites that were included because we were trying to demonstrate compliance, but I don't think that those sites are actually likely to be developed. So when it comes to implementing things, I think that there's a lot of room for improvement. Specifically, we should, as people have mentioned, promote the development of ADUs. We can also do similar things with duplexes and triplexes. There's a lot of land in Pleasant Hill that currently is zoned only for single-family homes. And with some very small tweaks, we can have low impact development that's not going to bring, huge concentrated amounts of traffic or strains on resources because it's spread out throughout neighborhoods, but that is still going to do a good job of helping the city to meet its needs and helping to bring down costs, because costs truly have just gone completely out of control and it's not sustainable the path that we're currently on.
All right. Thank you, Marshall. All right, we are on to question number 2. And Amanda, I'm sorry, you didn't get to go.
I didn't
I'm-
go.
I'm-
That's all right. Marshall said he was going to take an hour on that and he didn't.
Thank you for that.
But that's
I'm
fine.
real for rotating, so
Yes.
I'll get it
Yeah,
right next.
One of the things about housing, and I'm always thinking about this, it's when it comes to development, it's always delightful when it's a concept, but when it comes to my backyard, that's when it's a problem. And I know this because I've experienced it firsthand when there was development. And when this came down and it was discussed, I felt as if a recent development over in my area was we maybe got we had done it quickly and we got past having to do more than would have been required. And because there's a lot that goes into it, and we're not there's not maybe enough land here in Pleasant Hill to develop as much as we need to develop. And that's unfortunate because when it comes to things like the concept of affordable housing, it's a term that we throw around. And what does that even mean? What's affordable to me? Is that going to keep me, what was able to get me here in Pleasant Hill was not able to get me here in Pleasant Hill 20 years ago. So when I look at terms like that and I look at development and the land that we are talking about developing, I have to take the broader brush strokes about, is this a possibility and is it going to actually take place? So we have to look at the mixed use developments and whether or not these are going to be more feasible for the city and more likely to take hold.
All right. Thank you, Oliver. Sorry about that. All right, we are ready to go. Question number 2, we're going to start with Amanda and end with Belle. I've got my little notes together now. All right. What is your understanding for the use of funds collected by the city through the Measure K sales tax?
Microphone is off. The Measure K sales tax was a general sales tax, but the city committed to use that to rebuild the library, and that project is completed, and the library looks amazing and is amazing. And then it's also used for road and traffic measures. I think we should continue to use that for what we said we were going to use it for.
All right. Thank you. Marshall, next.
So Measure K is, it was written as what's called a general use sales tax. So legally speaking, the funds are unrestricted. However, it was sold to the public and council has made the decision to less formally restrict it to a certain set of uses. So that's infrastructure. There's a lot of road work that is done using Measure K funds. Some of the operating expenses for the library, I believe, are done using Measure K, like the extended hours. And then the single biggest line item in the Measure K fund outflows is for the debt service for constructing the library. That debt service is going to be paid off in 2032. One of the big things that I care a lot about, because I'm a finance guy, I have a background in municipal accounting, is that Pleasant Hill is currently projected to have some significant budget deficits going forward. This is because we have a lot of pension obligations, and that results in very steep cash outflows to the state. If we have a choice between doing something like cutting police services in order to avoid bankruptcy, or using some Measure K funds in order to provide continuity of service, then I would prefer to ensure continuity of service, especially once the debt from the library has been paid off, because then that is a new source of revenue that is going to open up. I think that that's going to be the most straightforward way to handle the city's financial problems. The preference, though, of course, is to keep it so that we are using as much of those Measure K funds for the original intended purposes as we can, because that is, that is what the voters were hoping for when the Measure K initially passed.
All right. Thank you, Marshall. Oliver, next up.
Yes, the initial use of the Measure K funds for the library and other infrastructure. And now with the major projects complete, we're left with what to do with those funds. What are there other projects, other improvements that can be made? And since it's a general provision there that it could be used for other things. And just because it could be, doesn't mean it should be, is always the question for a greater discussion. And there are significant improvements that could be made within the infrastructure that I think those funds should be allocated towards. And I know this has been a hot topic. It was discussed in the budget, and that is where it's come up just recently in June. But so in my opinion, those funds could be spread out and used elsewhere. But I think it's going to have a general consensus about where those funds should go. And just to have, for me to say, yes, let's allocate it here for any one particular cause, I don't think that's the best way to go. But I do like the improvement of roads because I drive quite a bit down them, and it's delightful when it's not bumpy. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Oliver. And Belle, we'll finish off question 2 with you.
Thank you. So in November of 2016, the city voters passed the 20-year half-cent general tax measure. And this is to invest in the city's aging infrastructure and to fund the construction of the new city library, as mentioned by Amanda earlier. That library is a self-sustaining library, but at the same time, there still needs to be maintenance that's done on it on a yearly basis. So some of those funds from Measure K is also going to help with maintaining that library. It's anticipated that Measure K is actually going to help us generate $5 million every year. So in 20 years, you're looking at $100 million of unrestricted funds, as Marshall mentioned earlier. Most of those funds are allocated to capital improvement projects, and those are used for street resurfacing maintenance programs. And it's also identified under the storm drain improvement program that we have right now. And those projects also include the pedestrian bike plan, the master bike plan. So what I think with Measure K funds too, is that what we should do is actually equitably distribute those funds throughout the entire district. not just in specific areas that's already in the capital improvement project from 2024 to 2029, but we should also look at maybe readjusting some of those areas as to where there is need for resurfacing of other areas that we may have potentially not looked at this point in time.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, question number 3, we are going to start with Marshall. What is your understanding of the city's long-range financial condition, and what would you do to prevent a future deficit?
So the long-term financial position of the city is one of the big things that has been keeping me up at night, which I know I'm not alone in this. As I mentioned, we do have a lot of pension challenges going forward. This is not a problem that's unique to Pleasant Hill. Almost every community throughout the state of California has to deal with this, except for Danville because they don't have a pension for their employees. But most of us, we are looking at a lot of challenges, and there's very little that we can do directly about them because the decision-making is with the state pension fund, which is CalPERS. So as things currently stand with the projections that city staff has prepared, the city's general fund is expected to run out of money in 2029. And then there's going to be basically a very rough decade of time in which we're in the red and we have huge pension outlays. So there are 2 main prongs for handling this. The first one is that I would like to tighten up some of those projections. As it is right now, the projections are assuming a 0% vacancy rate for city staff, which is what we're budgeting for, which is the rationale behind it. But it's also not realistic because, historically speaking, the vacancy rate has been above 0%. It's above 0% right now. And that gap between the budgeted projection and then the more realistic projection is what council has pointed to when they're saying the projections are not as bad as they seem. So I would like to see a set of projections that are more in line with historical reality. Once we do that, we're going to have a better understanding of what the challenges are. And then potentially, I think that we do need to keep open the possibility of using those unrestricted Measure K funds in order to ensure continuity of service. But the more we can avoid that, the better.
Thank you, Marshall. Moving on to Oliver.
Okay, so that was
You want me to? Yeah,
Could you-
I'll repeat. Absolutely. What is your understanding of the city's long-range financial condition, and what would you do to prevent a future deficit?
all right. And just to kind of piggyback on the unfunded pension, it seems to be the elephant in the room when it comes to what is a long-term financial consideration. But with that, it is something that everyone in the state is facing. A lot of different cities are, and what that means is that it's a projection for retirement plans, but what our city does is we make a projection, and it's not, we do a budget, but our projection shows where we would be if everything were properly funded. And since it's not, that means we don't have all of the staff to fill those positions. We are not in a deficit at this time. If everything were, then we would be. So there's a distinction there that it's worth understanding. But that's what projections do, because we want to act as if we have everything fully funded and all the positions fully met. Now, so what we can do is we can work with the rest of our city, and we can fill these vacancies out here in the city. We can, with these businesses, we can make Pleasant Hill as attractive as possible. We can bring in these tenants to generate the sales tax, which is our #1 revenue source, and ensure that our pensions are funded, that these positions are filled, and that we are able to continue to thrive as a community.
All right. Thank you, Oliver. Belle, you're up next.
The city is actually heading towards a deficit. And so looking at our deficit right now, I would propose to put a hiring freeze just on vacant positions. If you look at budgeting, what you do is you actually look at including your full staff, basically assuming that everyone will be in that position. And so if those positions haven't been occupied at this point in time, I think it would be best for us to freeze those positions. And at this point in time, again, community safety is one of my priorities, but freezing those positions will also help us with our budget. I think using, generating more revenue would be really important at this point in time. Generating long-term revenue, looking at those vacant big box stores that we currently have right now, having perhaps a H Mart. I've heard a lot of people, especially neighbors, talk about wanting a grocery store out here. And I don't know if you've heard about an H Mart, but it's one of the largest international markets that also provides Western groceries and has food stalls. If we made that location into some sort of mixed use and provided affordable housing at the same time, we'd be able to generate revenue for the community and the city at the same time and activate vacant spaces. Another opportunity that I see is that we also can have a night market at the DVC vacant parking lot right now. Activating that space reduces crime at the same time and also brings in budget and revenue, right? Because we'll also get people coming from sister cities to come and visit our city as well. So working with, visiting with Pleasant Hill is one of the things that I'm thinking in mind of how we can generate more revenue and reduce our expenses. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Amanda, we'll finish off question 3 with you.
Yes. So the pension liability is going to keep rising from about 3.8 million in 23-24 fiscal year to 6.1 million. It's not just the pension liability that's causing a deficit, but also insurance costs are up due to all the wildfires that are happening in the area. One way the city is saving money versus other cities is we don't provide retirement health care for our city workers. I think the city runs a lean budget, and I don't think there's a lot of areas where you can cut. So I think it's really important that we expand the tax base by, as several of my colleagues up here have mentioned, filling that big box retail space, looking for opportunities for redevelopment. I'm excited to see that there's a new hotel coming to Pleasant Hill, and I think there's opportunities for educational conferences and business events to bring more people into the city and generate that sales tax revenue that comprises about 35% of the budget. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. That concludes question 3. And Oliver, you get to start off with question number 4. What would you do to address the issue of the unhoused in Pleasant Hill?
Thank you. And this is a question that's coming up as I'm going around and talking to individuals daily. And it's something that came up when I met with the Pleasant Hill Police Department as well. And one of the items that the Pleasant Hill Police Department suggested was tightening up the municipal code. If there was some way to change the municipal code, at least from certain items from infractions to misdemeanors, as if like if somebody is in the median, changing that to a misdemeanor so they have some teeth and they're able to move them out of the median as a safety issue, for instance. That will give them the ability to do that. Now, in my personal life as an attorney, or my professional life as an attorney, I work in the courts as in the LPS courts that's for people with mental health issues. And now there's going to be the implementation of the CARES courts that's coming up shortly, where individuals are going to be getting additional services. Now there's the CORE program that comes in from the county that provides services, but there's going to be additional services within the courts where they will provide rehabilitation services for individuals who are exhibiting mental health issues that are a little bit more it'll be easier for the law enforcement to have them taken off the street in order for them to receive services. Now, this is something that is my constituents are really in favor of, and it seems to be welcomed all around. So I think that is most likely one of the best items right there, and it's going to be through the county and helpful through the city as well with the police department.
Thank you, Oliver. Bell?
We all saw how the pandemic impacted our local businesses, our jobs, and as well as our well-being, right? It didn't matter what your social status was, right? One way or another, somebody was impacted in some way or somehow. And there could be a number of factors as to why someone is unhoused, right? They lost their job, mental health, or perhaps there's domestic violence. I once volunteered at the Asian Women's Shelter as a Cantonese interpreter for women experiencing domestic violence. And through that experience, what we did was actually help them get back on their feet, right? We found temporary housing, working with them with organizations, providing workforce development, just opportunities to get them back on their feet. So what I would like to see in my strategic plan is for the city to do more outreach, right? Work with organizations such as the Contra Costa Crisis Center and the police department to help provide services to those who may be facing those types of circumstances. The Contra Costa Crisis Center is a resource center, and they connect people with crisis when prior to them even facing homelessness or unhousing, right? So giving them opportunities, job opportunities, education, training, just getting them through this tough time, I think is one of the things that I think is really one of the essential things in helping with the unhoused at this point in time. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, Belle. Amanda?
Thank you. Yeah, as I've been walking in the neighborhoods, I've talked to many people, especially who live close to Contra Costa Boulevard, who are concerned with the number of unhoused in the area. And I think there's also a concern about crime. I think that this ties into my concern about roads and road safety and sidewalks. I've noticed some neighborhoods in my community where people where there's sidewalks and the traffic is quiet, people sit outside and talk and discourages people from coming in that want to commit crime. Whereas other roads that are close to Contra Costa Boulevard that have heavy traffic, people stay inside and they don't go outside. I've worked with Warm Winter Nights. Warm Winter Nights houses people in the community who are working families actually, but don't have homes. And I think it's important we work with the police department and our local nonprofits like Warm Winter Nights, Hope Solutions, the county to get services to our unhoused folks. A lot of people don't know that you can call 211 if you see an unhoused person who needs help. You can also obviously call the police department if someone is engaged in criminal activity. So I think, yeah, we're just strengthening our relationships with nonprofits in the area to bring services to the unhoused. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Amanda. Marshall, we will finish off question 4 with you.
So we've heard a lot about the importance of providing services, and that is certainly crucially important. That's something where I personally, when I was with the Concord Pleasant Hill Healthcare District's Grant Committee, which is a long and fancy title for a commission that gives out property tax dollars for community health initiatives, I helped to provide funding to CORE so that they could go out and provide those services. I helped provide money to homeless shelters so that there could be beds for these people. However, it's important to remember that fundamentally, homeless services cannot solve the issue of homelessness because homelessness is not caused by a lack of homeless services. Homelessness is caused by a high cost of housing. This is something that has been extensively studied. There's a reason why San Francisco has a homeless population that is enormous, and then West Virginia has very few homeless people. And it's because in San Francisco, the average house is something like $3 million, whereas in West Virginia, it's much more affordable. Most homeless people become homeless because of either an economic shock if they were paying for housing, or an interpersonal crisis if they were getting their housing for free. That economic shock, the magnitude of the shock that's required to send somebody into homelessness is much smaller when housing is more expensive. To put it simply, if you need to spend, $1,500, $2,000 a month in order to have an apartment, then the amount of savings that you need in order to tide you through an economic crisis needs to be bigger. So fundamentally, the way that we actually address homelessness and the way that we've seen this addressed in the past with cities like Salt Lake City and so on has been by trying to bring down the cost of housing, trying to make it so that people don't become homeless in the first place, because that's fundamentally the only way that we're going to truly solve this issue.
Thank you, Marshall. All right, we are on to question 5, and we're going to start with Belle. Now that the city has been divided into 5 voting districts, what do you believe to be the positives of districting? And what do you believe to be the negatives to districting?
Thank you for the question, whoever brought that up. I think it was really a great idea to do the districting because it allowed me to actually have the opportunity to run for District 1, someone who's lived in Pleasant Hill for the past 12 years, raised my children here, to represent our community and be able to actually talk to my neighbors day in and day out and understand the things that they needed to have happen in our neighborhood. I think a lot of great things came out of it. We met a lot of people. We've met new people as well as other districts as well, having opportunities to run. And at the same time, I don't think there is anything negative about it. I think when you look at it in that perspective, there may be areas that we may not have thought of that needs like resurfacing. District 1 is a high density location. There's a lot of homes out there that are really high density. And with that being said, our streets need resurfacing. Our even pedestrian pathways that I've been hearing are not, painted in an appropriate way. And now we have Measure K funds. I do see some of it has been dispersed in District 1 for, the police department roof, things like that. But we do need some resurfacing in our streets, and we do need a representative in District 1 to be able to help the community voice this and advocate for them. And also not only for District 1, but being a city council member here, I would also represent the city and in whole as well. So I think I don't have anything negative to say about it. I think districting was the right way to go, and it allowed opportunities for most of us to be able to represent the community that we live in. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Belle. Amanda?
I tend to agree with Belle. Districting, as supported by California law, is supported by the Democratic Party, is supported by the League of Women Voters. I think it's great to have eyes on the ground in a area of the city. Our neighborhoods are unique and have unique challenges. At the same time, of course, we're all going to represent all of the city. This is a small city, and what happens in one community impacts what happens in another community. So, and we're just one voice for our district. So we have to work with our colleagues in order to get things done in our area. Yeah, I mean, the negative I see is, of course, we have had some great leaders on our city council that have to step down, and that's a loss of institutional knowledge, of course. Although I'm very excited to see that Mayor Wren is going on to serve on the BART board. And I think all of our city council members that did have to give up their seats will go on and do great things for the community. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Marshall, next up.
So I do agree with what Belle was talking about in terms of how district-based elections make it a lot easier for people to run. For me, I have a small child at home. If I was running in the entire city, that would be much, much more challenging for me to balance. It's, the bigger the area that you're running in, the harder it is to actually do. So by narrowing those areas, we expand the number of people who are able to take part in the political process. which is a very good thing. That being said, I do have some negatives that I can identify. I recognize some of the people here were involved back when we were going over to districts. There were a lot of meetings. I spent a lot of time drawing district maps, trying to figure out how do you take a city like Pleasant Hill and divide it in a way that makes sense. And for Pleasant Hill, it is challenging. You know, there are some places, you know, like with Walnut Creek, sorry, not Walnut Creek, Martinez, different parts of Martinez have very different characters. Same thing to a lesser extent with Concord, where you have the Monument Corridor, which is very distinct from some of those other areas. With Pleasant Hill, it is a much more homogeneous city. It was a lot more difficult to put together districts that make sense. Additionally, over the years, I've occupied a number of different political leadership positions. And generally speaking, from what I have seen with district-based elections versus at-large elections tend to have somewhat better dynamics. With district-based, because it's first past the post, there can only be one winner. So as much as I love Bell, only one of us is going to win. Whereas for an at-large one, it might be, you know, the four of us up here going for 2 seats. It's a lot easier to be friends with people. And that has ramifications later on in terms of the character of an area's politics. So there is a lot to be said for at-large elections as well.
Right. Thank you, Marshall. Oliver, you're going to finish off. I got it now.
Yeah,
Good.
got it.
Question 5.
All right, thank you. On the positive side, it's smaller. It is more economically feasible for anyone to run in a race. And it's just geographically more feasible for anybody to run in a race. On the negative side, the loss of individuals, the institutional knowledge on the first election. So that I think that is a big detriment to the process. And so I see that as a detriment, and so that is one of the main reasons that I'm running, because I have experience on other boards. As the head commissioner of the Pleasant Hill Baseball Association, I've been involved in the community. As a past president of the Contra Costa County Bar Association, I've got that experience. So I wanted to get involved, and I understand the dynamics at work here. So I know that there's a negative component with that type of turnover, and there needs to be some sort of stability. And so I think it's important that that occur. That the biggest detriment right now too in this first election is that nobody knows that we're having district elections. I know the city has done what they can, but still, as I go out and I talk to individuals, nobody knows that this is happening. They're used to the institutionalized version that we've had for as long as we've had them, and the at-large elections. And so but it's a great discussion that I've been able to have with many individuals that we're having district elections and how the process works. And I encourage them to reach out to Amanda. So it's great.
Thank you, Oliver. That concludes question 5. And we're on to question 6, and we're going to start with Amanda. What qualifications do you have that you believe make you the optimal person to be the next elected city council member for your district?
Thank you for the question. As I mentioned, I'm a teacher, and I think we've seen how teachers are valued on the national stage this year. Teachers have a lot of great leadership qualities, including time management, adaptability, organization, patience, conflict resolution. In addition to being a teacher, I'm a former journalist. I covered commercial real estate for the San Francisco Business Times. So I have the experience understanding the process whereby developers get projects approved and talking to landlords and developers. I've also have experience with budgeting and priority setting. As I mentioned, I served 2 3-year terms on the board of Church of the Resurrection, where we manage a budget, set priorities, and have committees carry out the vision of the church board. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Marshall.
So I've got all kinds of qualifications. In addition to the, I mentioned earlier that I have a background in accounting, which includes municipal accounting. Municipal accounting is its own whole bizarre beast. It uses fundamentally different assumptions. It's fundamentally different sets of financial statements, completely different process. And I have actual education in this. So I'm able to look at things like the long-term financial plan and the city's annual comprehensive financial statement. And I'm able to really understand what it is that I'm looking at. I also have a lot of financial experience from work. In my day job, I'm the funding director for a financial company. I spend again, a lot of time looking at financial statements, looking at the financial health of different organizations, seeing what makes and breaks them. I also have a large amount of experience with local politics and government. So I served on the Concord Pleasant Hill Healthcare District's grant committee, working with city staff in order to evaluate different grant requests, provide funding, and so on. I've also served in political leadership positions for several local countywide political organizations, including on the executive board of one of them. And that's an experience. It is one thing when you're in the audience looking up here. It's another thing when you're in the hot seat and you realize that it's just you and 4 other people who are responsible for steering the ship of this large organization and through all kinds of treacherous different waters. Leadership really is a lot of other duties as assigned. I remember when I became controller, one of the first things that I had to deal with was this gigantic HR issue. It's like being a parent. It's just new things keep coming at you. And I've been in that hot seat, so I know what it's like.
Thank you, Marshall. All right, Oliver.
Thank you. So I started at DVC when I was living on the corner of Boyd and Cleveland. I used to commute through Gregory Gardens every day to find a parking spot. And so I'm familiar with the parking over there. I'm familiar with driving through there. I'm familiar with going to school. I went to college till I couldn't go anymore. I became an attorney. I'm an estate planning attorney. I do probate litigation as well. And my office is here in Pleasant Hill. I've been practicing law for almost 20 years now. And so I'm familiar with running my own business. I'm familiar with a budget. I've sat on boards for, I was the president of the Contra Costa County Bar Association. I'm the head commissioner of the Pleasant Hill Baseball Association. I've been doing that for 5 years. I was a commissioner before that. I've coached teams. I've been involved in that organization for nearly 15 years. And so I'm used to dealing with $1 million budgets and going over them in great detail. I'm used to legislation. I've penned legislation. I was on the Probate and Mental Health Advisory Committee. I was the legislative subcommittee chair for that. And we dealt with the Free Britney movement. And you're welcome for that. And so that was one of the pieces of legislation that I was involved with. And that's Britney Spears, just so you know. And so I'm experienced in dealing with long agendas. I'm experienced with sitting in meetings for long periods of time and talking with individuals in meetings and going to meetings outside of meetings. I understand the time commitments. As the head commissioner of the Pleasant Hill Baseball Association, during the season, I generally have put in between 25 and 35 hours per week. So I understand time commitments when it comes to these types of things. And I'm willing to do that for this city.
Good timing. Thank you, Oliver. And Belle, we'll let you finish up question 6.
Right. I always find it hard to kind of toot my own horn, unlike Marshall there. But so let me go ahead and just start with, I have over 18 years of experience in the public service. I've actually started my career initially as an intern for Huckleberry Youth Programs to work with at-risk youth. And from there, it really kind of sparked my interest about how I can help people further along. And so when I started working with at-risk youth, I decided that I needed to learn more about how I can actually help and advocate for people. Because, one of the stories that happened was, a child who couldn't go back to their family for whatever specific reasons ended up in foster care. And that was very challenging for me to understand. So I moved into the field of law and I became a paralegal to understand the law behind that. And I decided that learning from there about law and how it impacts decisions and how it makes changes in policies and things like that is the reason why I ended up going into that field. After learning more about the law, I decided that budgeting is really important because that's where you're funding your projects, where you're able to help your community, how you can provide resources and things like that. And so aside from dedicating most of my career to public service, I've also been really active in Pleasant Hill. I led my community neighbors to City Hall to oppose the CarMax at Chilpancingo because that space could have been like developed for something else, mixed use housing, bring in more local business, things like that. But that didn't happen, but that's okay. I've also joined the local government academy throughout this time so that I can understand the ins and outs of the community and the inner workings of Pleasant Hill so that I would have a better understanding before I come here and run for city council. And my kids have also been civically engaged through this process. They also volunteered at the Botanical Garden during the pandemic. And most recently, I attended the Tinker's Fair, just making ice cream. So
Thank you, Bill.
always involved in any way.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you, Bill. All right. That concludes the 6 questions that we had pre-prepared, and now we have a few questions from the audience. And we're going to start with Marshall, keeping our order. Marshall and the rest of the panel here, what have you done to support the LGBTQIA+ community? And what will you do to support the community as a council person?
So one of the things that I'm most proud of from my time on that government board with the really long name, Concord Pleasant Hill Healthcare District Grant Committee, was providing some grants to the Rainbow Community Center in Concord. Rainbow Community Center is a community center that focuses on LGBT individuals. So one of the things that we helped fund was they have a food bank that is utilized by a lot of especially elder LGBT members of the community. So that was a wonderful experience. That was actually where I first met Ken Carlson, who was on Pleasant Hill City Council and then became County Board of Supervisors. I've also supported a variety of different local LGBT voices as they run for office, including Ken Carlson. A lot of my political experience has been helping candidates with running. It's been making sure that the dollars and the cents are there when they need them to be. It's doing the boring stuff in the background with the spreadsheets and so on, but it makes a big difference when it comes to helping people to get representation in the community. Yeah, I've also I've made a point of just trying to support LGBT individuals whenever I can. Some of this stuff is probably not going to be of general interest, but there's a specific organization I'm part of where they're very happy to support trans individuals until one of them tries to get on the board. And I've always been there to try to help that process with the trans people getting representation there. And it can be lonely. It can be very, very lonely. This is a much better place to be trans or gay or what have you than a lot of other areas, but there are still a lot of barriers that are in place.
Thank you, Marshall. Oliver.
So right now, one of my dear friends that I served with in the Marines is mourning the loss of his husband. And so if he's watching right now, I'm thinking of him. And I've been active within that community for quite a number of years. And one of the things that I've done most recently, I wrote an article. It was about representing minors or transgender minors in probate guardianships. So I'm one of the things I do is I get court appointed to represent kids in guardianships. Now, guardianships are cases where you have a their custody for non-parents. If you have a grandparent who's raising a child, then it's a guardianship. And in these cases, we have children who may be in the LGBTQIA plus community. And the situations at home may be horrific. For many, many reasons. And they need allies. And I've found myself in the ally position. And it is a wonderful spot to be able to support individuals who have nowhere else to go. And I've been able to do this, and I've been able to assist other attorneys in how to talk to kids. How do you talk to a kid how do you talk to a transgender minor? And so I've been able to do trainings in this regard. And what would I do in the future? I would continue to do what I'm doing, for one. And I would bring my experience to the city council, because I think being an ally is one of the most important things that I can do and continue to do. And that's exactly what I will do.
Thank you, Oliver. Bill?
I believe in embracing equity and uplifting our community. And when I worked with at-risk youth at Huckleberry Youth Programs, it is a shelter, basically, which allows children or youth to come in and out of the housing unit as freely as possible when they do need services. And I have actually had experience with the LGBTQIA+ community, where we've had youth come in looking for resources, just being an ally for them. As Oliver had mentioned, that it is a lonely situation at times, especially when you're a youth and you're going through situations where you're not clear of at the same time. And what I've done is actually been an ally. I've joined the parades. We've found resources and opportunities in that area. And I support that, especially because the Asian community is the second largest population in Pleasant Hill, and we are trying to expand the diversity here. And the third largest population is Hispanic. And so at being able to be culturally diverse and embrace equity and uplift our community in any way possible is where I stand. Thank you.
Thank you. Amanda, let's finish off this question with you.
Many of you who know me well know that my husband and I are the proud parents of a transgender son. I led the effort at my church to get training around LGBTQ issues and gender identity. This training led to a gender neutral bathroom in our church. And we had our first renaming ceremony. I marched in the Clayton Pride Parade this year, and I've marched in the San Francisco Pride Parade twice. I've supported the Point Foundation, which offers scholarships to LGBTQ+ students for higher education. And I've also supported candidates like Ken Carlson and Sarah McBride in Delaware. And finally, and this is an event everyone should go to, my church hosts the Drag Queen Spaghetti Feed, which raises money for LGBTQ nonprofits. So yeah, those are the many ways I have supported LGBTQ+ community. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. That concludes that question. So we're moving on. We have 3 total. So this is the second one from the audience. We are going to start with Oliver. How do you plan to stay connected and accessible to residents if elected?
My plan is twofold. One is maintaining a strong social media presence. I think that's a great way to stay connected with the younger constituents. There is a presence there, not just on Facebook, which my kids tell me is for old people, but also on the other more hip type of social media, which I'm actively pursuing. But then also with the town halls and getting active with participating more and more. The thing that I'm finding as I'm walking around is that people are not actively engaging as much as they could. They're not the people whose doors I'm knocking on are not seeing the individuals, the city council members out in town. They are not actively going to town hall events. They are not coming out to the events and meeting individuals. So I'm thinking there needs to be more, and this might be a bigger plus for the district system, that we have more district type events. And that's something that I raised, and they seem to be proponents of it because there's many people who do block parties. And they were very receptive to these ideas, and they would love to have a celebrity city council member attending these block parties. And so I thought, what a great idea. So that is my plan, and that is how I will be involved.
All right. Thank you, Oliver. Bell?
I agree about having the social media presence, but that's more so of the fact to be able to have the community understand where they can find their resources. If you actually go to my website right now, just even on my campaign site, let me just plug it real quick. It's www.bellbellaa.com. And you go into the section on one of the tabs, it actually gives you resources. It points you directly to city information, as well as the crisis center, as well as information that you need on the master pedestrian bike plan or the housing element and the general plan. So that's the way I would communicate information in that perspective. I also think it's really important to have coffee breaks, but I call it recess breaks. I'm a wellness champion at UCSF, as well as a diversity champion there. And so I started a program called Recess Breaks, which means that we actually take time off, just maybe 10 to 15 minutes, take a walk and have conversations, work conversations at the same time, or just community input, right? I think that would be something that would be great to have going on, as well as being able to have the conversations with your neighbors, just hearing from them. I think through the process of canvassing, I've learned so much about the community and what they want and what they've been asking for, as well as what I have felt throughout the past 12 years that I've lived here as a resident in Pleasant Hill. And so I would have an open communication, and my website will continue to be on, directing you to the resources that you may need. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Bell. Amanda?
Yeah, I've had one coffee already during my campaign, and that was a great event. People could come out and just give me their ideas about the city, and I would continue to have those as a member of the city council. I like the idea of block parties. By the way, Jeanette has the best block parties in Gregory Gardens, just so you know. Walks in the park, I think, are also a great idea to talk to people. And like Oliver, I'm not great on social media except for Facebook. I'm really good at Facebook. But I do plan to twist my son's arm. He's majoring in animation and game design to help me out a little bit. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Marshall?
So the single best tool that the city has for communicating with residents, I think, is the Pleasant Hill Outlook. That's the newsletter that gets mailed out to everybody in Pleasant Hill. I read it religiously every time it comes. I learn so much about the city. It's one of my favorite things that the Pleasant Hill city government does to stay connected with its residents. Because I've lived in a lot of the places around here when I was trying to improve my financial situation enough so that I could move back to my hometown. I lived in Martinez, they don't do that. I lived in Concord, they don't do that. I lived in unincorporated Central Contra Costa, they definitely don't do that. Outlook is a wonderful tool. It really is how I've learned about most of the things that are going on in the city. Block parties are also fantastic. We just had the National Night Out, which I would say that I had a wonderful time attending, but I was home because my wife had COVID, unfortunately. But going forward, plan is to not have COVID and to attend lots of block parties. When it comes to social media, I feel like when I was younger, I was really good with social media. And then the older I've gotten, the more of an old person I've become. So I don't actually use it all that much anymore, but I should be better about it. And then a lot of it also is directly engaging with the members of the community from the dais. It's when there's a big event going on, when it's something like districting or the housing element, then this room can fill up more than you would think. You have lots of people coming in here, lots of people eager to share their ideas, their concerns, I mean, with the housing element, we had something like 300 pages of public comment. I seen Sue trembling there like she's just gotten back from Verdun. And it can be a lot, but it's also invaluable because I learned a lot about the history of those sites just by reading all of that.
Thank you, Marshall. All right, we are going on to question number 9, and this is our last question before we will do the closing thoughts. So we'll start this one with Belle. What are your thoughts on the future of the Mangini Farm property? A hot topic.
That is definitely a hot topic. I think a lot of people have actually been wanting to, either build housing on there or mixed use, and it has been a vacant space for a very long time. I actually hosted the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander event next door at the Winslow Center, and it was a little sad to see that space was just left vacant and empty. So with that being said, I think there are a number of controversial things to talk about the Mangini farm location, right? There's the issue of having affordable housing there, but we also have the owner who may or may not want to move it forward in a specific way, and redevelopment of things in that area. I would, Pleasant Hill used to be a farmland from long ago. I don't know if most of you know, but having a farm location or being able to actually keep our open space would be ideal. There are other locations that we can build affordable housing. I know that is one of the locations that people are thinking is the only end all be all, but it isn't. We actually have opportunities to rezone and also provide mixed use affordable housing throughout the entire city. And so if that is one location that we can't move forward on, I think another opportunity is looking at the existing spaces that we had. Again, talking about the accessory dwelling units that we currently look at. I just walked down the street on Norse Road, and there was a house that's actually up for sale. And I had a conversation with the agent, and she said that the gentleman in the back built a warehouse for his band. And so they basically played in the back of their house, but that could have been an accessory dwelling unit or converted to that. And so what I'm saying is that I think that there are other opportunities if that Mangini Farms isn't going to be something that's viable for affordable housing opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Belle. Amanda?
It's my understanding as the Mangini Farms is zoned for medium density housing, but was not included in the latest housing element because we don't want the state to compel us to put housing on that site. I would look at any plan with an open mind, but I think if someone is going to build something there, there needs to be a lot of public benefit, like access to the creek, a park, perhaps playing fields. I agree with Belle that there's definitely better places in the city for affordable housing, close to public transportation, redeveloping some of our underutilized properties. There's plenty of sites along Contra Costa Boulevard where there's small buildings and giant parking lots that aren't being used that I think would be great locations close to transportation for housing.
All right. Thank you, Amanda. Marshall?
I have a lot of fond memories of Mangini Farms from when I was growing up. We used to go to the little vegetable stand there and get corn on the cob. And then we would bring it home and we would boil it, eat it, and then spend the rest of the day picking corn fibers out from between our teeth. And it's sad because I have all of those happy memories from it, but my son isn't going to have any of those because it's not a farm anymore. And that's something that I think a lot of people in the community have been struggling with. In a lot of ways, Mangini has become emblematic of some of the emotional issues that we feel when we see the city changing around us. Because there's a tendency to try to keep things steady, to keep things exactly the way that they were when we were young, but they don't. At the end of the day, Farmer Mangini is quite advanced in years now. He's not going to be out there doing a lot of farming. Yeah. Oh, he is actually, I've just been informed he has passed away, I believe. Yeah. So he's definitely not going to be farming then. And we have to move on. And it's difficult. I mean, yeah, I know this is not directly related to public policy, but it reminds me of my mother-in-law has just recently passed away, going through the gigantic home that they had, and it's lonely when you're just going through these empty halls. So my hope is that we can find something new that can go there. And it's probably not going to be a farm. It might have parks, it might have something else. It might just be, homes where my son's friends end up living and then he goes there to play with them. And that's how he forms happy memories. But I do think that it's important for us to move on, as difficult as it might be for those of us like me who have lived here a long time, who have all of these happy memories of that site.
Right. Thank you, Marshall. Oliver?
Thank
finish
you.
up with you.
I love that site as well. In fact, I was just thinking that my first Society of American Magician meeting was held there at the Winslow Center, and I'm missing that meeting tonight to be with you. And thank you for putting this on because it's no place I'd rather be. But that was back when I was a professional magician, which I'm no longer. And I see that property, and there's great potential. And there's always the question: what are we going to do with where are we going? Where are we going to get more land in Pleasant Hill? Where is the space? And there is Mangini Farm. And so that is the location I think is going to be best developed. It's going to be one of the best developed properties around. I think it's got the most potential for mixed use and for the potential for other types of development on there. And I know that a lot of people don't like that because it's the in my backyard development. And I agree because it is close to my backyard. But at the same time, this is what we have to work with. And that if we go back to one of the earlier questions today, that what do we do with the housing element? How is this going to work? And we have to develop. And so when it comes to that, we have to look at what is available, and this is what's available, and this is what is going to increase property tax. This is what is going to benefit the city. And when it comes to those other questions we were asking about, where are these funds going to come from to fund these things in the city, that it comes from property tax and sales tax when people move in.
Thank you, Oliver. That concludes the question portion of the evening. And so now we are going to do closing statements. And we will go opposite since Oliver started. We're going to start with Marshall with his closing statement and move down. So go ahead.
I'm still in a bit of a contemplative mood thinking about Mangini property. And it really is emblematic of the challenges that face Pleasant Hill specifically and the Bay Area more generally, which is what happens to a suburban community when that community ages. Because back in the day, we would deal with a lot of our problems by going and building suburban sprawl somewhere else. I remember when I was young, it was building it in Antioch. And then after that, oh, well, we need to go out to Brentwood. And now there's all of this stuff going out in Tracy, but we're reaching the limits of what we can actually do there. And so we need to find new solutions. The old way of doing things, which is, again, just slap down a bunch of suburban sprawl somewhere else, that's not a viable path forward anymore. Now, a lot of the responsibility for solving our community's problems is coming down on us. It's coming down on communities like Pleasant Hill. How are we going to accommodate population growth when we can't just say, oh, go live in Tracy and commute to San Francisco, because that doesn't work? How are we going to do that while still being true to who we are as a community? How are we going to do that while still maintaining our small town feel? This is the kind of thing that got me interested in local politics, in local government, is trying to find answers to those questions. I've spent a long time on the outside trying to find these answers, trying to find these solutions. And it's really exciting now to be in a position where I can try to actually join government, to serve on city council, and to have the honor of working with 4 other incredible people trying to chart a path forward for our city. It's Again, I bring it back to my son because I think about him all the time, but he's going to have such an interesting life seeing Pleasant Hill change around him the same way that I saw things changing around me. And I'm really looking forward to it.
Thank you, Marshall, very much. Amanda?
Oh, thank you, Marshall. Well, I'll start over. Thank you for hosting this event. One thing I neglected to mention earlier is I'm a small business owner myself. I operate a tutoring service and I am a chamber member. I tutor dyslexic children in the afternoons after my morning teaching job. So I'm a teacher. I have a background in commercial real estate reporting and I have board level experience. I hope you'll join me in making sure Pleasant Hill stays safe, affordable, and inviting for all. I have the endorsement of several former and current Pleasant Hill commissioners, our county supervisor, Ken Carlson, and I humbly ask for your vote. Please visit www.amandasakach, that's spelled SZAKATS.com, to find out more or to volunteer for my campaign. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Belle?
I've spent my career and personal life dedicated to public service. Now I'm ready to take that experience to City Hall, working to make Pleasant Hill a safe, stronger, and more sustainable place for all of us. I bring years of experience in managing budgets and have proven that financial responsibility and impact can go hand in hand. I know how to achieve outcomes while maintaining the discipline our city needs, but my work isn't just about numbers. It's about people. I've worked with the most vulnerable communities and designed outreach programs and educate families on vital services. That experience taught me how to listen, collaborate, and create real solutions. Skills critical in ensuring community safety here in Pleasant Hill. I know how to build bridges, connect resources, and make our city stronger for our residents. I'm also deeply rooted in this community. As a mother of 3 boys who attend Pleasant Hill schools, I'm not just talking about change, I'm actually living it. I've organized toy drives, supported Project Homeless Connect, and worked alongside community members to build a better future. I know what this city is capable of, and I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and get to work. As your city council member, I have clear priorities that I will advocate for. Community safety. With my experience in outreach and collaboration, I will work to create a safer city where residents feel protected and supported. Fiscal responsibility. With my extensive background in financial management, I will ensure our budget is balanced, transparent, and oriented toward long-term growth. Environment and sustainability. I am dedicated to preserving our green spaces and advancing sustainable development that benefits both our community now and future generations. I'm honored to have the support of leaders in planning, education, and finance who believe in my vision for the city, and I hope to earn your trust as well. Together, we can create a Pleasant Hill that's safer, financially secure, and more sustainable than ever before. Let's build a future that we can all be proud of together. Thank you.
Thank you, Belle. Oliver, take it home.
All right. As we look towards the future of Pleasant Hill, I am committed to ensuring our city remains a place where businesses and residents can succeed together. My approach is rooted in fiscal responsibility, thoughtful development, and a deep belief in the community engagement. Whether it's working to support our local businesses by hosting baseball tournaments or softball tournaments, soccer tournaments, water polo tournaments, getting more people into this town to see what the beauty of Pleasant Hill, and increasing the transient tax. And so we can bounce back to those pre-pandemic levels. Enhancing the public safety, promoting responsible growth. I'm ready to bring my experience and dedication to the city council. As a veteran, the head commissioner of the Pleasant Hill Baseball Association, and a former professional magician. Together, also an attorney. Together, we can build a prosperous future that benefits everyone in our community. Thank you for your time, and I humbly ask for your support and your vote. Let's work together to keep Pleasant Hill the best place to live, work, and do business. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for being so well prepared and spending your time and giving of yourselves. This is not an easy job, and you guys have all taken that on. So I think everyone in the audience here would say thank you. And then I just want to also thank the audience. Thank you for being here. So important to be involved. This is a really important time right now in the world. So thank you everyone for being here. Thanks again to the chamber for putting this on in the city. And have a good night, everybody.